spirit and they do create. You may think it's ayihlalanga, but iyadlala kumntwana and ikhula nayo. Challenges that boys encounter on a daily basis: a lack of sense of belonging. That boy will just end up like his father or his uncle or his brother. The hashtag men are trash. In social work is a calling. Even the medication that you take, the medication that was prescribed from you, it obtained on self-medication as well. Yes, you can also abuse that. Yeah, once you realize that you can't live without it, you need it every day to survive, then that's what we call an addiction. I would say I almost abuse that other powder as years. Yeah. Every time when I have a headache, but sometimes even when I don't have a headache, I will be like, because I liked how it tastes.
I think you know where I'm going.
I know where you're going. Being a parent is a divine assignment. Oh gosh, they'll have to call me because now there's a lot of debate about mental illnesses. Some people say they're spiritual, some they're saying they're not, it's an illness. God, it's not easy, it's difficult because you have to be sensitive to people's beliefs.
Welcome to Isiyalo.
Thank you.
Well, you are part of us. But today I think it is the first time we record any of our conversations, and we've had many. So without taking stage when I'm not in front of the camera, go ahead, tell me who you are, or tell us who you are, and just go in. I'll stop you when you need to stop.
Okay, thank you for inviting me to the podcast. I'm Lesego Mate. I'm originally from Limpopo. I was actually born in the Northwest, and then I went to Limpopo when I was about to start primary to stay with my parents and my siblings there. So yeah, I did my primary there, went to boarding school for high school, and then went to UJ to study social work, which I would say it was never my first choice or my second choice. So what happened is that I did my matric. Oh gosh, now I'm gonna reveal my age.
Please.
I did my matric in 2006.
Okay.
And my biology, maths, and physical science marks were not that great. So I had to upgrade because I wanted to. Well, I always wanted to go into the health space. I can say social work and health is more like the same thing. I wanted to be a physiotherapist or a dentist. So I tried to upgrade my marks, but they were still the same. So my mom was like, I don't want a child who's going to stay and not go to school. South Africa is in need of social workers. I've heard on the radio, I've been hearing even on the news, on TV, that they are now encouraging more people to study social work because the country is in need of social workers.
So that's your mom saying that?
Yes, that's my mom saying that.
And how did that land on you hearing it, seeing that you wanted to be?
Seeing that I failed or I didn't get good marks, even though I tried to upgrade, then I thought, okay, maybe let me just take her advice, because the advice was just go and do social work. Even if you don't like it, do it, because yes. And maybe after when you are a social worker and you feel like you need to do whatever that you need to do, then it's fine. You can go and study whatever that you wanted to study if opportunities are still there. So I remember going to UJ. I applied very late because it was never my first or my second choice. I just went straight to the Faculty of Humanities. I went to the dean For the first time in my life, I was with a dean in an office. I'm from the rural areas. I'm doubting my English. Is he gonna hear me? Then I just went, I was like, I want to register for social work. Then I think he asked me why a late application. I don't even remember what I said in that room. But yeah, I applied and then I registered, and there I was, a social work student. Studying social work was interesting. I met people there. I established friendships that even today I'm still friends with those people. So yeah, I think I loved studying it. Then when I started working, maybe I enjoyed the first 3 or 4 years, I don't know. But normally I would hear people saying social work is a calling, it's not a profession. Like you just find yourself doing it. I have a friend who was very good in accounting, and people always thought maybe she was going to be a chartered accountant or maybe an IT specialist because she was excelling in those subjects, physics and your math and your accounting. But she ended up doing social work, and she was like, social work is a calling. I think she's the one who tried to help me in a way to love social work, to embrace it, and to appreciate okay, maybe this is where God wanted me to be. And then when I started working for the department, I was placed in Johannesburg Magistrate Court to work with the children in conflict with the law. So yeah, that's where I got exposed to challenges that boys encounter on a daily basis. Because I've noticed that most of the children who commit crime are boys, and that's when I got to understand that statistics, they are not lying. Researchers are not lying when they say children who or boys who grew up without um, a presence of a father are the ones who normally, you know, commit crime or get into self-destructive activities. Because that's where I got to see that okay, this is true. Then I think from there I started to have compassion for a boy child. Um, I think I started to think of ways of how can I show a boy child ukuthi they are appreciated, we see them, we love them, we care about their self-development, and we also care about their empowerment. And yeah, that's where I also wrote a book, but this book was specifically for men. But then I stopped marketing it because I don't know whether it was the right time for me at that time to write the book. I think I wrote it because I was too emotional of whatever that was happening in our country. At that time, it was the time of there was just a lot of femicide happening. You know, I think the story of Karabo. I don't know if you remember Karabo was
Yes.
burned, but yeah, it was
Yes.
during around that time, and I was attending a church service. Esondweni is a women's service, and I remember my pastor was just preaching about this. Ukuthi as women, we should not look down on ourselves. God also trusts us to go out there and solve the problems or the issues that our communities, our families, our country is facing. So we prayed that day, and she also said we should not look down on men as well. We should pray for them and understand that some of them, they are operating, they are under some spiritual attack or some demonic attack, and they don't know. So as women, we should remind them of who they are in the eyes of God, that they are leaders, and God entrusted them with us to love us with integrity, to lead us into the right direction. So we should pray for them. Yeah, it was during that time of the hashtag men are trash. So
Oh,
she was like, we as
okay.
Christian women, we shouldn't say men are trash because
Okay.
words are are powerful. And if we say men are trash, that's what we're gonna see. Even young boys are gonna grow up believing that men are trash. So we as Christians, we shouldn't. And I think that's where the idea of writing a book came. It actually came at that moment. It was okay. I mean, I don't speak a lot. What can I do? Maybe let me write a book to reach out to men.
And what's the name of the book?
It was a conversations with men.
Okay.
Hashtag you were not created to be trash.
So this book, was it published or?
It was published. I think I have about 5 copies that are left. It was published. I got interviewed, go some few radio station. But as I said, I feel like I was not yet ready. I don't know whether it was time or whether it was just fear to just come out. Ukuthi, you're writing a book for men. Well, there are men who appreciated it. There are men who wanted to debate with me on other things, and I felt like, oh my gosh, I don't have
And
the
what?
energy to debate. I don't. I see myself as a person who don't talk too much and who's not even that articulate. So like, nah, let me just.
And where
Like
can
God.
people find it though? If they want it, where can they find it?
Oh gosh, they will have to call me.
Okay,
Yeah, I
we'll link
tried
up the
putting it
details.
go exclusive and it didn't sell because I was not
Marketing.
marketing it. Yeah, it didn't sell. So I never gotten my 5 copies back. I don't know what did they do with my 5 copies. But yeah.
Okay. I think we got most of who you are, where you come from, and your perspective on social work. You know, um, and where your passion quickly develop for this particular profession, if you want to call it, and you just said others name it a calling,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that's there are a couple of things I would want us to touch on um, before we get into it. Um, but give me a quick view of how you see your work now after all the development. How do you see it now? Just a quick sibonise ukuthi how do you see it? How do you, when you wake up in the morning, or even just an overview of how you see your profession?
I think I am at a point where I agree with those who are saying it's a calling,
Okay.
because I see it as. I remember in university, someone used to say to me, listen, when you are a healer, and I couldn't understand what he meant, right? So I think being a social worker, in a way, it makes you a healer. You are an emotional healer. You do heal people emotionally, and when people are healed emotionally, it automatically goes to the mind and the spirit and the body as well. So, yeah, I see myself as a healer.
Wow.
That's a big one.
Okay, and that's an overarching um, identity. So being a social worker would be your current vocation,
Yes.
meaning even if you would be something else, you would still be that here, which is great. I think a lot of people struggle to see their purpose because it's so attached to the profession and not who they are. Great. Let's get to it. I think we've sort of, before we reveal things we shouldn't reveal. We got to it. I think the reason I brought you here was for us to cover the most, um, whew, I'd say the biggest killer that we have, in my opinion, is the biggest killer that we have in our country. Or can I say the biggest killers?
Mm-hmm.
And that is depression, that is drug substance abuse,
Mm-hmm.
and there is also anxiety. Okay.
Yes.
And they are always mentioned as being, at a most high, particularly in SA.
Mm-hmm.
But I was wondering, I mean, before we go into it, I have a question. What is depression? What is anxiety? Okay, and what is substance abuse? Can you maybe just go through these three very quickly? And also, are they related? Do they link up somewhere? Um, I mean, feel free to speak from your experience.
Okay. In simple terms, I would say depression is normally characterized by low mood, feelings of worthlessness. You feeling worthless, you feeling useless, you feeling hopelessness. Is more like you have lost hope in life, and it's also feelings of feeling inadequate. You know, you're losing interest in the things that you used to love. So some of the symptoms of depression could be oversleeping, overeating, or if you used to eat too much, you're no longer eating, you know. So that is, in simple terms, I could say that is depression. But in the world of science and psychology and doctors, depression is when your chemical brains or your chemicals in the brains, the chemicals that centers your positive and negative emotions, is when they are not balanced. So when they are not balanced, that's when we get a person who very sad, very angry, other days very happy. That is now bipolar because it has types. But yeah, in simple terms, that is just that, is feelings of worthlessness, hopelessness, is when you have lost hope in life. Hence, most of the people who are suffering from depression, they end up killing themselves, committing suicide, because you get to a point where you feel like you are not you are not giving anything to the world, and the world is not even giving anything to you. So, but you feel empty. So what's the use of living? Then you commit suicide.
And so anxiety would be.
Anxiety normally is fear, but it is now fear that is prolonged and that is characterized by, it changes your body. When I'm a heart palpitations, you sweat, you have panic attacks, you can't breathe, you can't. Fear is normal, anxiety is normal, but then now when it's prolonged, it becomes an issue. Hence, we have terms like social anxiety. These are people by when you are around people now, you start sweating, you start panicking, which is something that is not good, which means you have to deal with it. Talking about anxiety, I was just having a conversation with my friend this morning, so I texted her some picture, and she was like, "Yo, Lesego, when you're positive in like, it's the picture of me in the future." I was just showing him, "Yo, this is how I would look like if this happens." And she was like, "Wow, when you are positive." I mean, I'm struggling a lot with negative thoughts, and normally when I think negatively, I start to have heart palpitations and headaches, and my body becomes painful. So those are the symptoms of anxiety normally. Yeah.
So hence the term I am anxious about this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it correct to say that perhaps anxiety is when fear has grab a hold of you, or fear has sort of taken or
Consumed your life.
consumed you? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. And just I'm just curious. I'm going out of script, but not that there is one. But I'm just thinking. So if someone says they are social did you say social
They have social
anxiety?
anxiety.
Yeah.
Yes.
So meaning when there's a lot of people, they sort of collapse internally type of.
Yes.
What kind of fear would drive that? Like, is there? Do we know what fear that sits inside of them could lead them into that type of anxiousness?
It could be a lot. It also could stem from how they were brought up. Yeah, I think I don't know yet what kind of fear or what causes that kind of fear. But I'll say, in my understanding and also with the experience that I have with some of my clients, I will say normally is the way you were brought up. For instance, if maybe you were bullied when you were young, you were told, Uti, when you can't speak or you can't do this, that thing it grows in you. Then as you grow up, you feel like you also lose your confidence. So as you grow up, you feel like maybe when you're around people, people are seeing those things that people were bullying you about.
I
So you
see.
tend to want to be alone, but when you are in a crowd, you feel like okay, they are seeing my weaknesses, and that's when you start to feel that
Anxious.
anxious. Yeah.
Okay. And substance abuse. Um, and I know maybe we know we probably think we know what it is, but can we define it for somebody who's listening and who does not know what substance abuse is, or maybe they know but they possibly know a a myth, of it, because sometimes we think we know things, can't we just know a
Yeah.
mythicized definition of it. So could you maybe explain what substance abuse is?
Yeah, now in simple terms, I'll just say what is substance abuse is just the excessive use of substances. And normally, when they say substance abuse, like you say, Uti, we think we know, but we don't know. Most people, when we say substance abuse, sicabanga, itaha,
Okay.
um,
Alcohol,
alcohol,
hard
and
drugs,
mandrax,
yes.
yes, but it's not only limited to that. Even the medication that you take, the medication that was prescribed from you, a doctor, or the self medication as well. Yes, you can also abuse that.
I don't wanna get us into trouble by calling brands, but nalama aspirins, engathi
Yes.
amanye powder bawathenga emakuleni.
Yeah, but I'm good. I would say I almost abuse the
Okay,
that
yeah,
other powder
yeah, yeah.
as is. Yeah. Every time when I have a
Wow.
headache, but sometimes even if when I don't have a headache, I will be like, because I liked how it tastes.
Wow.
But yeah.
Because when I when I grew up with a lot of grandmas in my home, and I think you know where I'm going,
I know
and
where you're
and they
going.
were sniffing on something. Um, it was sort of normal to me that this is done, particularly abugog and stuff, and
Yeah.
it's only when I was older that I realized, oh no, you know. And I suppose then once you cannot live without it, then it becomes an addiction.
Yes, yeah, yeah. Once you realize that you can't live without it, you need it every day to survive, then that's what we call an
It's an
addiction.
addiction.
Yes, it's an addiction.
Cool. I think um, these, we've defined them. And so I want to go into your work because I think that's where we have wisdom. I mean, like, I just want to draw out of that wisdom. You said something about most crime offenders being boys, which is a statement that you would have heard before going
Yeah.
into your profession, and maybe for someone it would sound like, this is just people bashing boys and whatever, and you found it to be true. speak on that? Like, could you how give me an idea of the ratio, even if we don't have in factual stats right now, but give me an idea of the ratio between boys and girls who are offenders, and maybe give me an idea of why this could be. Why is it that the girl child is not as equal? Because both of them grow up in maybe the same environment, but guys end up being the most um, and end up being the highest in offense. Could you speak into that maybe?
Yeah. I think it's one of the things that maybe I need to do some extensive research on. Why is it boys that tends to commit these crimes? If I were to give you a ratio or
An
an
estimate.
estimation of percentage, I'll say 90% of children who commit crime are boys. I will say that.
And again, before people kill us, this is just, it's not facts. It's
Yeah, no, this is facts. I mean, this is not facts. Oh, sorry. It is just an estimation based on what I see in my job. Yeah.
and these are the your they are your clients by definition, right?
Yes.
And so why is this though? What are you finding when you speak to
Okay.
our fellow brothers and young brothers, our sons? Because my oldest son is old enough to be a young man. So what are you finding in our sons? What is it that's missing? What are we doing wrong?
What I'm finding is that most of them are from homes where there is no a father or a good male role model.
Okay.
So these boys are being raised by the streets, and most of them they're from areas where gangsterism is like a norm, it's like a way of living. It's either the reason the father is not there, it could be the father just was never even there in the beginning. Maybe the father left while the mother was still pregnant, or they separated when the child was still young and then just decided to live his life elsewhere. It could be that maybe the father is in prison, and some, even the uncle or the brother, is also in prison. So it's more like a culture, a way of life, you know. So without a proper good role model, then what will happen? It means that boy will just end up like his father or his uncle or his brother. So that's what I found out normally, that okay, it's a lack of fatherhood, it's a lack of guidance, it's a lack of mentorship, it's a lack of authority. There's no one who has established authority in the family. You just live anyhow. And the mothers they do try to bring some authority, but it, it never works most of the time. And also what I find out, I know this may touch other people otherwise, but also what I found out is that because when we assess these kids, there's a section where we ask about their their religion.
Okay.
Yes,
Their
this is
faith or
yes, their
belief.
faith or their belief. And most of the kids who say they don't have any religion, they don't believe in any religion, most of them are those who reoffend. They reoffend, which means, okay, after a child has, let me just explain, after a child has committed a crime, what we do is that we refer them for diversion programs. This is to help them correct their behavior, modify their behavior, and also empower them with life skills that will help them to make right decisions.
Right.
Yes. So we believe that through these diversion programs, they won't reoffend because now they know who they are. Through the diversion program, they have established a strong identity. Now you know who you are, you know your values. So now that you know who you are and you know your values, which means you know who to associate yourself with. You're not just gonna choose any friends. If you believe that Dagga is not for me, then it means you're not gonna associate with people who smoke Dagga. If you know who you are and where you're going, you'll choose people with the same values and beliefs as you. So we believe that through these diversion programs, then they won't reoffend. But let me tell you, most of these kids who are committing crime, they really don't have faith. They don't believe in anything. And some of them, even after they've gone through these diversion programs, they come back again into the system, they reoffend. And those who are active, whether it is at the mosque or in church, those who are active, they respond well to the diversion program. They never come back, which shows Uti if a child has something that keeps him busy, if a child has something that he's good at, a skill that he masters, and he has the opportunity to use that skill every now and then, it helps them to move away from the negative things in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. I never thought I would hear this from a professional. You know, okay, so this is what I wanna maybe I want I see a link and maybe you can help me. So you say that at first we defined depression as maybe low moods, right? A feeling of uselessness. Okay. And so we are now saying our young men, they our young men who do not have a transcendent belief system or a belief of a higher authority tend to re-offend. And you also said that you found that most of them come from a home without an authority.
Yeah.
So so you're saying that I just want to see if this link, if I'm seeing correctly, that there is a link. There's a root of not having purpose that sort of creates and of course if you grow up with a father in the home, they usually speak purpose over you.
Yes.
And they speak maybe blessings over you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you never had that, then we see instead of being a good influence in the society, then you are not so much um, of service into the society. Let me
Yes.
put it that way.
Yeah.
So how do these things link? I mean, I'm thinking they are always on the top three said to be the the depression, anxiety, abuse, substance abuse. They are leading. Okay, and so in your field of work, you have found what you have found through the boy child specifically. Is it purpose that's missing? Can you maybe speak about that? What do you think is missing? I mean, it's quite obvious that the father is not there, and I'm thinking, I mean, it's not a quick fix, you know, unless Abu Baba of the community step up for these children to say, you know, in some way or form. But besides that, here's a mother. I want us to speak to this mother who's alone, who's raising this child alone and is having difficulties, and they can see this problem, or these problems rather. What are we saying? What are we saying is at the root cause of this? What is it that they can try to speak into this boy child or try to help them with or what can they do so that we prevent this, or we prevent that, at least that child from going into the system in that way?
Sure. I feel like you ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
In
I'm sorry. I just wanted it to be open, as open as it
as
can
open as
be.
it
There's no
can
script
be.
here.
Oh gosh, where do I even start? Okay, I remember you asking, is it because of lack of purpose
Yes.
that this um I'm not quite sure if I can say that it's because of lack of purpose, because I believe that if you're a child and a child who goes to school, at that moment, school has to be your purpose, and it has to be the one thing that motivates you, to live a purposeful life, if I can say. Because at school, that's where we also have extracurricular activities escoleni. So at school, that's where you explore who you are. There are activities that you can do to explore who you are. Because there are some kids who their lives revolve around school. Soccer, if they're playing soccer, escoleni. Rugby, if they're playing rugby. And then exercise and books. They are hardly in the streets, you know. So I wouldn't say is that, maybe I would say it's a lack of sense of belonging.
Oh.
Yes, we have what we call the Maslow hierarchy of needs. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Please tell us.
One one of the needs in that hierarchy
Okay.
is a sense of belonging. And he says that when a person does not have a sense of belonging, it's like they don't know who they are. So when you don't know who you are, you try to find yourself in so many places. Instead, for a child, if you grew up in a house where there's no love, ubaba akekho, father has rejected you, and your mom is also maybe frustrated of you, they are always shouting at you, they are saying things like you are useless, you are a waste of oxygen. Um, those things, they cause an emotional wound, and you start to feel like there's no love, Lana Engine. I feel like I don't belong here because they don't understand me. Instead of loving me, they are swearing at me, they are rejecting me. Then now you want validation and love from outside. And outside, and normally, I don't know why it happens like this, because normally when you are like that, you tend to attract people who are also experiencing the same thing. So you go outside, you find these people via Bema,
Oh
they
my
take
God.
Daha just to forget about whatever that is happening in the house. And they introduce you to this. I also have the same issue, but when I take Daha, I feel calm. When I mix this and this, because now they're mixing the cough syrups and the cold drinks, and they say it makes them sleep, it makes them calm. So that's how they cope with the issues that they face ending
Oh
in the
my God, I
house.
was so
Yes.
all over, but I think you found the link. So basically, it starts off with some kind of depression stemming from
Yes.
identity.
Yes.
Okay, so it's an identity crisis. I don't know who I am,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a catalyst here which I see being negative words spoken onto me that adds a catalyst to push me out.
Yes.
Right, and so when I'm out, I find my community, the ones who are like me,
Yes.
and then we figure out a way how to cope as
Yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
Right, so now we find all of these things now marrying together.
Yes.
Whoa.
Now that you find your community, you feel like they understand you. Now you feel a sense of belonging. So now those are the people that you want to spend your time with.
The time with.
You even bank classes just to spend time with those people, because maybe even escolweni, because of now you are using Daha, now you use concentration, now you are failure escolweni, now the teachers, maybe and other kids, are always picking on you, which you are failure. Now you don't feel a sense of belonging at all escortedly. Then, because most of these kids, they are dropouts. Some they are banking classes, which means now they are now at risk of dropping out of school.
Let's speak to this catalyst, because I think the whole aim is for the viewer at home to pick, solutions from this, or maybe just even if it's not solutions, but at least to mirror and be aware, because I think that's where everything starts with us being aware of where we are. I mean, it has become a norm, or it has been a norm, in not in all homes, of course, but I think in schoolers, but particularly in the townships, Sekasi, maybe even in rurals, I can say that words like ufana no babako, where the father is not at home, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, the father left mom,
Ish.
and the father was maybe a drunkard and left mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then so hey, uzofana nobaba konje if you
Ish.
continue to do these things, even if it's placed in that way. I mean, just the introduction of uzofana nobabako,
Yeah.
or maybe awufani nabanye abantwana. I mean, the comparison to say, look at other children, you are way below par. So cognizing them of the just comparing them in a physical. Let's speak to that. How powerful are these words that moms, and not just moms but family as a whole, speaks over the boy child, maybe at this time, and maybe even the girl child. How powerful is it, and how can it be? How can one change? How can one rewire?
Mm. You know, when they say words are powerful, we think ukuthi bayadlala, but words are spirit and they do create. You may think ukuthi ayihlalanga, but iyadlala kuntwana and ukhula nayo. So we as parents, we need to change how we speak to our children.
Yeah.
And I think somewhere somehow that's where faith is involved.
Okay.
Because with faith, you know what the word of God says about faith, that faith is the substance of things we hope for.
Right.
So I think we need to change our minds, or change the way we see our children and think of our children.
Oh.
Yes. And the way we see ourselves as parents. As a parent, you need to understand ukuthi God chose you. God could have chosen anyone
Okay.
to give lo mntwana lo, or to bring lo mntwana lo to earth. So I think we need to understand ukuthi la bantwana, they are not really ours. Maybe if we can understand ukuthi abantwana bakaNkulunkulu, and he only used us as an instrument to bring them here on earth and to train them for his purpose.
Oh.
Maybe if we can just shift our minds there, then we realize that being a parent is a divine assignment. And umntwana wakho is a special being that you have to train for the purpose yakaNkulunkulu. Maybe if we can just see it in that perspective, then we will stop saying negative things towards abantwana bethu, and you stop saying ukuthi uzofana nobani uzofana nobani. Maybe we should come to a point where we like ngeke afane nobabakhe. This one is going to be better than ubabakhe. This one is going to you need to stop the cycle. Yeah, he's not going to be a drunkard like ubabakhe. He's going to be sober. He's not going to, all the negative things that ubaba was doing. Now let's speak positively to the children, to our children, or towards our children.
Great. So what you're saying is it starts with the current guardians.
Yes.
In how they see this very child. So that's where it starts. They have to change their perspective and they have to look at him, even though it's like even though his
Yeah,
face
physically.
resembles of them, it shouldn't trigger them. They should see a whole different person and start speaking positively into this person. But I hear that, and I fear that it's easy to say it,
Yeah.
but having been someone who has gone through a renewal of mind myself, I know how hard it is on the practicalities of things. And I think I want us to speak more on now practicing. How do I renew my mind? How does it look like to remove just one sentence? How do I do that on a daily basis?
On a daily basis.
Yeah, because I'm this parent. Ke tlwaetse hore, channeling that down. Now I'm seeing this video and I'm thinking, oh my god, this is killing my child. So what's the process now? What do I do?
Um, if you're struggling, I don't know if this is the right answer, but what's the process? I think the process normally, I can't say, speaking helps. Normally, reaching
Reaching out.
out helps. Yeah, reaching out helps. Maybe if you have friends who are parents, just ask them, "Uti, how's parenting for you?" And then talk about your struggles.
Yeah.
And you may find, Uti, you're speaking to someone who has been there and now they have practiced being better parents and now it's working. So the practicality you could start by reaching out. You could start by going to therapy. Now we have parental skills where we teach parents how to parent positively, how to parent better, you know. So reaching out, seeking help, you can start there. Yes, because sometimes on your own, like you said, putting it into practice may be difficult.
Maybe hard.
Yes, it may be hard. I may have said, Uti, speak positively, but it may be hard. So maybe sometimes you just need to reach out and work with a professional on one-on-one. Yeah. Or you just tell yourself that you're just going to practice it. Just tell yourself that you're going to do it and just do it and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you do it and you see Uti is yielding positive results, and that will motivate you to continue doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So seeking help is a very a powerful tool. I know that, but I also know that sometimes in our communities, sometimes, okay, the blind leads the blind. So we are all sort of like, Cholo, I'm having this difficult. Ungawali Cholo, bayazikhulela labantu. The stuff. I mean, we know this is Kasi talk, right?
Yeah, we do.
Bayazikhulela labantu. Khohlwa uzoba right, and stuff. So, um, okay, so maybe let me say this, that to to get different results, you'd have to go somewhere that you haven't gone before.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
I really get that. Okay, let's get into it. We don't have much time, but let's get into this. This is the second thing that I want us to touch on, and it was based on something you said earlier on when you introduced yourself. You said that in your you spoke to your pastor in the beginning stages of being a social worker, or maybe in your journey somewhere, and he said that we ought to speak positively over our men and not trash them, right? Okay, but there's a statement that he said, he said, some are under spiritual attack. or you said demonic attack. Okay. Now I'm daring you to come into this space. How do we differentiate? Okay, maybe let me not go there. But let me ask this. As a social worker,
Yeah.
how do you negotiate the two things? The
Sure.
spirit and the the work. How do you negotiate that? Because I can imagine. I mean, you.
Gosh, it's not easy. It's difficult because you have to be sensitive to people's beliefs, to your clients' beliefs. You can't
Yes.
impose your beliefs or your faith on your client. So
Okay.
this one is not easy to answer.
I can understand.
It's not easy to answer. I guess it depends on the kind of a client that is sitting in your room at that moment.
Yeah.
Then, yeah, depending on that, you
Yeah.
will get the wisdom on how to approach the situation at hand.
Yeah.
Yeah, because now there's a lot of debate about mental illnesses. Some they say they're spiritual, some they're saying they're not, it's an illness. I came with this book because I've been reading it. It
Right.
was written by Dr. Lloyd Magangeni. He was my tutor.
Okay.
So the reason I came with it is because he has a different perspective
Oh.
on depression.
Okay.
And I sort of like what he's saying.
Okay.
For instance, this is his definition of depression, right? He says depression is when you compare your vision or dreams or fantasies with your current reality about how your life is supposed to be. And then Nana, he says, what if I can tell you that depression is not an illness, but a strategy?
I think if I think it's a very difficult discussion which deserves a part two on its own. I believe the issue of the spirit and the issue of the physical plane, because as even in his definition he's comparing ideas of reality and fantasy,
Fantasy,
and we
yes.
know fantasy ain't reality. It's not reality until it is manifested as reality.
Yes.
So obviously there's a gap between reality and fantasy, and at this point fantasy is not reality. So now if depression is something that sits in between those two planes, or negotiating those two planes, whether be it negatively or positively, then we can't plainly say it's physical, or we can't plainly say
Yeah.
it is spiritual. Okay, so
Yes.
I see that. Wow. Do you think social workers do? Okay, this is controversial, and if you don't want to answer it, I'll understand.
Okay.
Do you think that the religious beliefs or beliefs of a professional does maybe seep into their work? If you don't feel comfortable, you can skip it.
I think it does, but it's not supposed to be.
Okay.
But lately, I've been seeing on Instagram, I've been seeing a lot of Christian social work, Christian. So now I think people now are trying
Oh,
to
categorize.
categorize themselves. Uti, if you come to me, no, Uti,
This is what you're
chances
going
are
to
in the
get.
session I am going to tell you about Jesus.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
So, but it's not ethical to impose
Yeah.
our beliefs on our clients.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are not allowed.
Okay. Wow. We're definitely having a part two. I'm serious about this. And on this very same topic, I think we should, if we we have
Maybe we
time.
should even invite the
Oh, the author.
yes to
I think so.
unpack this.
I think so.
Yeah.
Okay. But for now, to conclude this one, I need us to spend at least this last 3, 4 minutes speaking to the boy child, and the mother, both the boy child and the mother, or the guardian, let's say. If you were to say something to the boy child that has not yet come into the system but is feeling depressed, and they are feeling unwanted in the home, and they are feeling as if they need another community, or they're feeling as if now they need external substances to cope, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I will say to them, um, reach out. They are social workers. For instance, now I'm a social worker. This is Isiyalo Wellness Centre, and this is what we believe is our calling and purpose, to build communities, to heal those who are going through emotional turmoil or mental illness, to heal them and to help them to restore
Yeah.
their emotions, or to reconcile with who God created them to be,
Yes.
you know. So I will say to that boy child, reach out, go and seek help from a therapist. There's nothing wrong with seeking help,
Yeah.
because sometimes there are people in the family, they may not understand you, but that therapist may understand you and work with you to help you become a better version of yourself.
Mm.
Don't go to drugs.
Mm.
I know they're easily accessible,
Mm.
but that will even destroy your life even further, you know. So it's better to reach out. You can even reach out to a church or a pastor or a role model. There's definitely someone in a community that I believe we all look up to.
Mm.
Sometimes you just have to be courageous and just approach that person
Mm.
and tell them your struggles, and you'll never know.
Mm.
They may help you.
Nice. Thank
Yeah.
you so much, Sikha, for being with me, in expressing these concerns of our community and just feeling the need to speak out. And I hope we would have touched a life, even if it's one, you know.
Yeah.
And I think I can say, just in last closing, that if you are reaching out to a church or even a person, just remember that that is a group of people meeting, and that is a person, and whatever they do to you, or whatever they perhaps, or however they treat you, is not how God treats you. It's how those specific people have decided upon themselves to treat you in His name. So you can always seek another person, and somewhere out there there'll be a person who understands you.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
true.
um let's call this one done.
Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Thank you.